To dig 4 meters, even after the dry season, the site will be flooded. So it's very complicated to make field work on that side because we have to provide a lot of effort for only one season of field work. In Bantapon, it's a little bit easier because sometimes the fossil beds outcrop at the surface, so we have to dig sometimes only a few centimeters just to remove the soil. And we decided to focus our effort in that site, and you see we made maybe 10 field works there in the last 3 years. This is the original site where in Bantapon the fishes were collected and described by Olivier Martin. And we found a new excavation, and as you can see, some of them are very nice. So we have a very good stratigraphic section full of fossils. So I'm going to show you very quickly the main taxa we can find there. So for the fishes, we have made mostly 3 big groups. The first one is the family Ambassadii, the glass fishes. We have 2 species. The most difference in the size, this one is much bigger than this one. And they are very closely related to the glass fishes we can find in the Mekong Basin, like Parombasis siamensis, but also in the Salween Basin, so in the Myanmar-Thai border. The second group of fish we have are catfishes, siluriforms. We have here 3 species, and as you can see, I mean, it's difficult to see it, you have to trust me, but some of them are very close to the living representative. Some of them are a little bit different, so it's not necessarily the same genus, but actually it's very difficult to distinguish them. And it's very difficult also because, you know, in fossils we have only the skeleton, so we lack a lot of diagnostic features which make the comparison a little bit difficult. I just forgot to tell you that we have 2 sites, so Banampla and Bantapon, and interestingly, the glass fishes are incredibly common in Banampla. It's more than 70% of the fish we caught and almost absent from Bantapon. For the catfish, they are rare in both sites, but they are more common in Banampla than in Bantapon. And the third group, the most diverse, is the cyprinids. We have at least 6 species: Ipsibarbarus, Mystacolochus, Luciosoma, which is a recent species, and the Pechabun fossil Prolusiosoma, which are very similar to. And interestingly also, cyprinids are quite rare from Banampla, except this one, Prolusiosoma. In Bantapon, it's quite the opposite. These 2 species, very rare in Banampla, are very common in Bantapon. They form more than 90% of the record. We have also other taxa like plants, so a lot of leaves, pollen, branches of monocot and dicotyledons, and also a few interesting specimens like this one, which is a Dipterocarpaceae fruit. As far as we know, it's the first record of that kind of fruit in the fossil record of Thailand. And also very nice flowers. So they are still under study, so I cannot tell you to what kind of family or genus it belongs, but apparently it's also one of the first record of a flower in the Cenozoic record of Thailand. And to finish with the taxonomic diversity, we have also coprolites. So I don't know what kind of animal left that coprolite. Under an X-ray, we can see a bone here. So it's a carnivore, but for now we cannot say more. It's under study too. And maybe under the sea, my colleagues were looking for pollen, so under the SEM, and he found very strange structure, very similar with the hole to amoeba. So we have to focus more on that taxa too. It's very complicated to find specialists of fossil amoeba, but we may have those very small nanofossils also on the site. So to conclude, we have here the richest fish assemblage, Cenozoic fish assemblage of Thailand, and one of the richest in Southeast Asia. In comparison, we can find a lot of fossils very well preserved in Indonesia, in the Eocene of Indonesia. In Vietnam, we have some isolated bones. In Myanmar too. So just to show you that except Indonesia and Pechabun, most of the sites in all the Southeast Asia have only very isolated elements. The fish fauna is very close to what we can find today in the Mekong Shoklaya Basin, but also the Salween Basin. So we have to investigate more to identify more deeper the species we found to to get a better idea of the biogeographic relationships between the living forms and the past forms. The analysis of pollen on leaf allows us to suggest a dry and deciduous evergreen forest environment for the Pechabun Basin. But as I told you, we have some differences between the two sites, Banamplan, Bantapon, in the fish fauna and also in the plants. So maybe we had some different environment. Maybe one site was located in the middle of a lake, of a big lake, and the other one closer to the banks. But it's still a hypothesis. And the problem we have is the age of the site. So we had a very good discussion yesterday with Dr. Nalit about that. We don't have biomarker, biostratigraphic fossils. We're studying the pollen right now to try to find an age that is probably Miocene, early or middle Miocene. So it indicates that at least since the Miocene, the ecosystem in Thailand are very conservative. We have almost the same fish and the same plants, which indicate that everything was in place more or less, at least during the Miocene, and probably even earlier during the Eocene. Just to mention very quickly that the Geopark sites are like the museum collection. They are very important, of course, for the preservation, for the valorization of the heritage, but also for the scientific research. So to conclude, I just want to show you why it's so important to study Cenozoic fish in Thailand. So as Julien said yesterday, we had several basins in Thailand, the Mekong Chao Basin, the Salween Basin, and what we can call the peninsular Thailand. So in all the basins, the fish fauna are quite homogeneous, quite the same. Okay, so looks like that. If we look at the Mesozoic, like yesterday and today with the presentation of Dr. Tumpon, we can see that the Mesozoic forms are very, very different, very far from what we have today. But the Cenozoic ones, even from the Eocene, are incredibly close. So that's why it's important to study the site in the Cenozoic basin in Thailand. I told you that there were only 3 sites with papers. So this one is Pechabun. And if we focus very quickly in the 2 other sites, Lampang is very interesting because the 3 isolated, 3 incomplete specimens were described in 1916 by a very famous ichthyologist called Stencio Anderson. And it's very important for the taxonomy, for the paleontology, but also for the history of paleontology in Thailand, because apparently it's the first description of a fossil vertebrate in the country. The fossils were collected by a Swedish ornithologist called Bill Benstock in 1914. We went to the site to try to find the original outcrop where we can see the specimens. So for now, we were unable to find them, but we found a lot of fossils in the Lampang and Memo basins with some of my colleagues here. So it's also a very good site to understand the Cenozoic fish fauna of Thailand. And to finish, just a few words about the Mesod Basin. So 3 specimens were described in 1969 by the Japanese ichthyologist Teruya Ueno. The specimens are lost now, we cannot find them. But the Mesod Basin is very rich in fossils, so we made a field work a few months ago, and we were able to find in some black shell, in some oil shell, a complete specimen of cyprinids. They are not very well preserved, but at least they are there, so we can focus more and try to find more specimens. There are also snakes, also plants, coprolites, and also insects. I just want to mention that to conclude my presentation, because in the Mesod Basin, we have the only assemblage of insects during the Cenozoic in all Southeast Asia. There are hundreds of specimens, dozens of taxa. We published a paper a few months ago, the first paper. So it's a very interesting locality for, I mean, it's the best locality for insects during the Cenozoic in all the Southeast Asia. Thank you for your attention.